The Camino de Santiago, one of the world's most legendary pilgrimages, begins for many here in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, a charming town in the heart of the French Basque Country. I'm starting my journey today, walking the Camino Francés toward Orison, the first stop on this historic route. As the sun rises, the air is cool and the excitement is palpable. I'm feeling a mix of anticipation and nervousness. There's something deeply humbling about setting out on this path, knowing that for centuries, people have walked this very route, seeking answers, adventure, or simply a fresh start. The first leg of the Camino is no easy feat to climb out of Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port is very steep. And right away, the Pyrenees make their presence felt. The path leads through quaint villages, lush forests, and steep hills. Each step brings you higher. I was disappointed as I was blanketed by fog. I was only able to see a few hundred meters in any direction. As I continued, I was unprepared for how steep the trail was. There were very few pilgrims on the way of St. James, and my only companions were some curious horses. Eventually, the climb broke through the fog, and what was on the other side was spectacular. After several hours of walking, I finally arrive in Orison, a picturesque mountain village. It's small, with only a handful of buildings, but it's also one of the most important stopping points for pilgrims traveling over the Pyrenees. Here, you'll find the Gîte d'Étape, a welcoming refuge for pilgrims to rest, enjoy a warm meal, and share stories. After a tough ascent, I reach a rest stop just below the summit, where I take a moment to catch my breath and soak in the views. The quiet is so profound here, broken only by the occasional sound of birds or the rustling of leaves. It's a humbling feeling, being so far from the bustle of everyday life, and it gives me time to reflect on why I'm here on this journey, walking the Camino de Santiago. There's a food truck, which is a checkpoint. You are close to finishing the climb. You'll pass by a few more friendly horses and leave the road. It is an incredible feeling to see the summit. You have walked 18 kilometers, almost all uphill. The Camino gives a timely reminder. There are gravestones and plaques of those who have perished on this hike. It should not be taken lightly. Reaching the top felt like a triumph. There, at the Col de l'Epoder, I paused to take in the vastness of the landscape. Rolling hills, wildflower fields, and the distant valleys below. The steep descent awaited, but for a few moments I stood still, breathing in the beauty of the journey. The descent into Spain is dangerous. 2 pilgrims died within a week of me walking through there. One by falling into a ravine, the other by heart attack. Finally, after hours of steady walking, I arrived in Roncesvalles, home to the famous monastery, a place of rest and renewal for pilgrims who have crossed the Pyrenees. It's a peaceful village, rich in history, and a symbol of the first leg of the Camino. I would have my first pilgrim's meal here, a 3-course meal costing around €14, and an opportunity to sit with other pilgrims from all over the world and chat. Gregorian chants were played over the speaker to wake us up the next day. You must leave the albergues by 8 a.m. On this day, I took 38,603 paces. I climbed 239 stories, and I walked 24.2 kilometers. I stayed at the Roncesvalles Monastery for €15. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. After a restful night in Roncesvalles, it's time to continue my journey along the Camino Francés. Roncesvalles is steeped in history, but today, the road ahead leads me through the Spanish Pyrenees, heading towards the village of Zabiri. It's about a 22-kilometer walk today, and I can already feel the beauty of the route beckoning. A quick stop at the famous Santiago sign, 790 kilometers to go. The trail from Roncesvalles begins by winding through dense forest, the path carpeted with fallen leaves. As I walk, I'm struck by the stillness around me. The only sounds are the crunch of gravel underfoot, the rustling of leaves in the wind, and the occasional voice of fellow pilgrims. It's the kind of peace that's rare to find in everyday life. Spanish villages have an incredible atmosphere. The farmland and yards make you appreciate the countryside. These farms have been worked for centuries. After a few hours of walking, the forest opens up to reveal stunning views of the rolling hills and valleys below. Along the way, I meet other pilgrims, each with their own story to tell. Some are walking solo, while others are in groups, chatting and laughing as they go. We share a bond, even if we're strangers. After all, we're all here for the same purpose. The Camino has a way of making you feel connected, not just to the land but to the people around you. The last few kilometers into Zabairi are a gentle walk through picturesque countryside. As I approach the village, I can see the stone houses and the church steeple rising in the distance. Zabairi is a small, quiet place. One of those charming villages that feels like a peaceful oasis after a long day's walk. My second pilgrim meal, I shared with people from the UK, the US, Belgium, and Taiwan. I stayed at El Palo de Avellano, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I took 42,563 paces, climbed 33 stories, and walked 27.9 kilometers. Dinner cost me €17 for a 3-course meal, which was delicious. My tip for the day is to definitely take hiking poles. They save me from many tumbles. Leaving Zabairi behind, the path quickly takes me through lush, green landscapes and quiet fields. There's a gentle rhythm to walking these rural roads. The route today is mostly flat, which is a nice change after the steeper climbs of the Pyrenees. The countryside is tranquil, with fields of corn and grazing cattle dotting the landscape. I cross several little streams and pass by farmhouses, each with their own story to tell. This is the heart of rural Spain, and it's easy to feel connected to the land as I walk through it. As I continue, I pass through a few small villages, each with its own charm. The people here greet pilgrims with a smile, offering a simple buen camino as we pass by. The sense of community is strong. Everyone is walking the same path, and yet we're all on a personal journey. The little village of Huarut is one of the first places I encounter. It's quiet this early in the morning, with the occasional dog barking and locals starting their day. Walking through these small towns always makes me feel like I'm stepping back in time. There's a simplicity here that's hard to find in the bigger cities. The yellow arrows keep me in the right direction. St. Stephen is a quaint little church that allows you up to the bell tower. As the day goes on, I can finally see Pamplona in the distance. The city, famous for its running of the bulls during the San Fermin festival, is just around the corner. The last few kilometers into the city feel different. There's a subtle shift in the landscape as I move from open fields into the more urbanized areas surrounding Pamplona. I make my way through the outskirts of Pamplona, passing by its ancient city walls and gates. The closer I get to the center, the more I can sense the buzz of the city. Pamplona is vibrant, with a mix of old-world charm and modern energy. I can't wait to explore the city further, but first, I stopped by a restaurant that was used as a scene in the movie The Way. Here, Tom argues about tapas when it is actually pinchos. Pamplona is a city full of history. The Plaza del Castillo, the old town, the winding narrow streets. All of these feel like stepping into another era. But beyond its historical significance, the city is also a place of connection. Pilgrims from all walks of life come through Pamplona, and there's a sense of camaraderie here, as it marks the first big milestone on the Camino. I visit the cafe made famous by Ernest Hemingway. It is packed, and to be honest, not worth the wait. I stopped by the Pamplona Cathedral. The cathedral is a fine example of Gothic architecture, though it also incorporates elements of Romanesque and Renaissance styles due to its long construction history. The cathedral's construction began in the 14th century, approximately 1390, and took over 100 years to complete. Its final touches were made during the 16th century. The Gothic design is particularly evident in the cathedral's impressive vaulted ceilings, stained glass windows, and the elegant flying buttresses that support the structure. The Pamplona Cathedral is a key stop for many pilgrims walking the Camino Francés to Santiago de Compostela. Pilgrims often stop to pray and reflect at the cathedral as it marks an important moment on their journey, and it's located near the entrance to the city. The cathedral has historically been a place of refuge and support for pilgrims, and there is a special sense of reverence for it as a significant Camino stop. Today's walk from Zabairi to Pamplona was a beautiful blend of quiet countryside and the vibrant energy of the city. It's amazing how the Camino can be both peaceful and exhilarating at the same time. Tomorrow, I'll continue my journey, but for now, I'm content to rest in this historic city and let it sink in that the Camino is truly underway. I stayed at the hostel Casa Ibarola. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was a more corporate affair. Today I took 34,349 paces, climbed 49 stories, and walked 23.1 kilometers. My tip for the day is to allow yourself enough time to explore Pamplona. I didn't and have regretted it ever since. I left before dawn to try and beat the crowds. Pamplona was very busy, and I suspected that if I wanted any peace and quiet, I would need to leave early. This section of the Camino is beautiful, offering a mix of urban and rural landscapes, and leads through picturesque countryside as you approach the historic town of Puente la Reina, famous for its medieval bridge. The first part of today's walk takes me out of Pamplona, through the suburbs and into the more open landscape. It's amazing how quickly the noise of the city fades away, replaced by the sounds of nature and the rhythm of my footsteps on the gravel path. As I walk, the landscape is constantly changing. I pass through fields of wheat and corn, where the golden crops sway in the breeze. It's a peaceful stretch of the Camino, and I feel the simple beauty of the countryside around me. The occasional yellow arrow reminds me that I'm on the right path, but it's easy to feel lost in the moment. Where the wind meets the stars, donde el viento se encuentra con las estrellas. A striking piece of public art located along the Camino Francés, just outside the town of Villafranca del Bierzo. The sculpture depicts a series of metallic, flowing, star-shaped structures that appear to be caught in the wind. It's a modern piece that creates a striking contrast with the natural beauty of the surrounding Bierzo Valley. The stars are symbolic of the pilgrim's journey, which traditionally culminates at the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela. In this artwork, the stars represent the ultimate goal of the Camino, guiding the pilgrim toward their destination, much like the famous North Star or the idea of destiny. After a couple of hours of walking, I reach a slight climb that offers a breathtaking view of the valley below. From here, I can see the countryside stretching out toward Puente la Reina, which is still a little ways off, but it feels close enough to reach by lunch. As I approach Puente la Reina, the iconic medieval bridge comes into view. This bridge, built in the 11th century, is one of the most famous landmarks along the Camino Francés. It's incredible to think that pilgrims have been crossing this bridge for centuries on their way to Santiago. I make my way into the town of Puente la Reina. It's a small but lively place, with cobbled streets, quiet squares, and beautiful stone buildings. The Santa Maria la Real Church is a must-see, with its Romanesque architecture and peaceful atmosphere. Today I took 40,796 paces, climbed 21 stories, and walked 27.7 kilometers. I stayed at the Albergue Estrella Guia Solo Peregrinos. It was amazing. I gave it 5 stars out of 5. My tip for the day is to take a mask. It is hard to avoid people with illness. I have ended up with the flu.